We might just flick straight into our questions. We already do have about 5 or 6 questions from the community here today, which is great. If you're sitting there and you have some questions as well, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. So just down the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says Q&A, and you can pop your questions in there and we can get to those as well. We are here to answer questions, share our knowledge with you freely, and hopefully you can get a lot out of that today. Very different to a webinar. We're not here to do a presentation. We are here to move through answers and share as much of ourselves with you. So hopefully that all makes sense and something that that we can continue to grow. So let's jump into the first question. Now, this is a very common question and it's popped up in a few different ways over the last couple of weeks, Sharon and Linda. So let's kick off with this one. What is the difference between a partnership and a sponsorship, and aren't they pretty much just the same thing?
Great question, Julia, and one we actually field an awful lot. And the answer is no, they're not the same thing. But let me give you an analogy of how I think about it. So I think of sponsorship as one slice of a cake, but a partnership is the whole gâteau. So sponsorship is typically associated with a commercial exchange of value. So it works really well, for example, with sporting organisations. So if you're Hawthorn Football Club, you can measure and give a tangible commercial benefit for how many eyes you get on whichever part of the ground during primetime TV matches. So it's very measurable, very commercial, and it's an exchange of value. But I think partnerships, being part of the whole cake, is a much more integrated thing. It has many more pillars of activity, and crucially, you're actually tapping into a lot more activities and different budgets in an organisation. So a really integrated partnership could tap into your marketing, your PR, your HR, possibly your product development, your channels. So the opportunity is so much bigger. Let me give you an example of an organisation we did some work with a while back. So if, like me, you sit there on Christmas Eve and you sing along to the carols by candlelight, you'll be familiar with Vision Australia. Now, Vision Australia Carols by Candlelight is a very commercial proposition. They have Channel 9 TV coverage, there's advertising rights, they've got lots of celebrities and so forth. So it's a really easy one to promote for a sponsorship opportunity. However, Vision Australia also has a lot more strategic partnerships. So their mission is to help people who are blind or have low vision. So they have partnerships, for example, with technology companies who lend their skills and their resources and their funding to help create solutions for blind and low vision people. So a great one is one that's being worked on at the moment, which is to use technology and voice recognition to help blind people steer their way through crowded spaces like shopping centres, places that you and I take for granted. So I like to think of it as if you're going after sponsorship, that's fine, and that can legitimately be a good way of actually starting a relationship with a company. But don't let the rest of the cake go to waste. Let's go after the whole partnership.
That's a great analogy with the cake. I've never heard that example before and making me a little bit hungry, but I think that's a great way for all of us when we are looking at our projects and at our work, whether we're, depending on, it doesn't matter which side of the fence that we're on, really, is it? Because we also hear from businesses that, I want to partner in the community, but I don't know whether I'm doing that as a sponsor or a partner, and, what's the difference from their perspective as well. That's a really, really great way to put it. Thanks, Linda. Well, let's move into the next question. This one is a common question, again, reflected in some of the questions that we've received over the last week. And the question is where do I find new partners? Is there a magic list that exists somewhere? Do I grab that list and start cold calling? How does it actually work?
Great question. I wish I had $1 for every time somebody asked me for my list of contacts. I'd be very rich. No, please don't start cold calling. I was chatting about this the other day, that I think sometimes when people go around corporate partnerships, they treat it like individual giving. So they think, I've got a great program, I've got a great project, and, there's a real need. So they focus on what the need is, and obviously people will want to give to that. It's not the same. People give in terms of businesses for different reasons. So there's a bit of preparation we need to do. Now, Julia, do you mind getting up the engagement cycle on the screen? Because I'm just going to run through. This is an established methodology that Linda and I use. So I'm going to show you the little bit that you need to do before you start calling people or before you start having those coffees. So there's 3 stages to it. The first bit is getting ready for corporate partnerships. So that's all the blue boxes then. I'm going to cover each one of those because they're really the foundation to any partnership. Next part is the yellow part, which is all about finding the right partner. How do you actually go out there and find them? Which ones are right for you? And the third part is the step-by-step process on how you win those partners. So let's focus on each of those blue boxes at the top. So strategic review. So this is really about where are you going with your organization? What do you need to get there? And how can a corporate partner, what do you need from a corporate partner? If you can identify what you need from a corporate partner, it's really easy then to kind of define what industries that you might want to look for and then make a clear ask. The second one is about your assets. So what do you have to offer to a potential partner? And this is the reason why organizations will give specifically to you as opposed to other organizations. It's really about what you have to offer to them. Next thing is your unique value proposition. What's special about you? There's 54,000 registered charities in Australia. Why would they want to give specifically to your organization as opposed to some of the other organizations out there? Can you tell potential partners what's special about you? And the next part is really important about getting your organization on board. So don't just assume that people know where a partnership is and why you're entering into a partnership. And also make sure that you do decide upfront any areas that you don't want to go into. So any of those no-go areas, alcohol might be an issue for your organization. It might not. What about junk food or fast food? Are you prepared to partner with organizations who are involved in that? So that's the foundation work that you need to do before you even start having those conversations. Because the idea, if we go back to the question, Julia, where you said, can I just have your contact list? Which is, as we said, really, really common. So if you get the contact list, then what are you going to go and talk to them about? So do you know what you want from them? Do you know what you have to offer to them? And can you articulate what's special about you? And you don't want to be in the situation where you're already having conversations with a potential partner, and then your board or your chair or your CEO says, hang on a minute, why are we talking to this partner that doesn't align with our programs? So it's really important to be able to set those foundation work, find the synergies, and then you can start looking. So if you think about, you've got hundreds of thousands of businesses in Australia, so you've got so many to choose from. Once you know what you want from them, you're defining it down. Once you know what you have to offer and who might be interested in that, again, you're defining it, you're refining your list. Then if you can articulate what's special about you and which ones you are and aren't going to partner with, it means that you've got a really strategic way of looking for new partners and new contacts rather than just going for anyone.
That's great. That's fantastic. And that engagement cycle is just such a useful one-page tool that you've put together there. Is that something that you find that you're teaching a lot at the moment in partnerships, in the conversations that you're having, just coming back to those basics of the cycle?
Yeah, it's so common that I keep using the analogy at the moment that when people start in corporate partnerships, that they compare it to individual giving, and I've got a great need and I've got a great program, and that's why people are going to give to me. But corporate partnerships work very differently than that. It might come from an advertising budget, as Linda was saying. It might come from a CSR budget. It might come from philanthropy, and you need to work out what it is that they're interested in and what you have to offer to them. Which of those budgets are you tapping into, and just really articulate what it is that you can do for them and why they should choose you.
Right. Is there some parts, just to delve into that engagement cycle a little bit more, is there some parts on there that you see people commonly miss? Are there steps there that you see that people commonly miss or have to come back to frequently?
Yeah, Julia, one thing that we find all the time, and maybe it's an Australian thing because we see it more in the Northern Hemisphere done consistently, it's a bit around assets,
Right.
understanding what you've really got to offer. That's absolutely key to a successful relationship development. So for me, I kind of think about it as, do you want to do a speed date, or do you want a marriage?
Right.
And if you want a marriage rather than a speed date, you've actually got to think about what's important and what you actually have to offer. So you've got to be fully dressed and very prepared for it. So, you're not just dipping in for a random experience here. You're in for the long term. So I think assets is a really important thing, because everyone's got a version of their strategy to a greater or lesser degree of clarity. But what they actually haven't thought about is, what are you offering, and what are the benefits that then translate to your partner? So it's like, you're like the world's worst speed date, where you talk about yourself all evening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the bit I think that's often missed, and it's really critical and can make the real difference between making a random ask and landing something that actually is meaningful for your partner.
Yeah, great. If you've got any comments or questions about that engagement cycle, please do pop them in the Q&A box, or even in the chat box if there's anything there that's interesting for you or to you. Personally, I mean, I would love, with a lot of the clients that I've worked with, just to be able to do an asset workshop, just to be able to spend time on that, because we often can't see what our assets are. Even just in relationships, we just take for granted the things possibly that we have to offer in a partnership. So I guess being able to have that, doing that in a group, or doing that with people such as yourself or with others, to get that reflection piece around what is actually really great, especially for people, I guess, that are starting out new, that you would find that they sometimes don't see how great they actually are.
Exactly. And sometimes people are too modest. Sometimes they just don't have it all in one place. And I think Sharon often calls it your catalogue of confidence. So when you actually go into partnership negotiations, you've got everything laid out there. And more importantly, you can measure them and you can prove them. So you can say to a partner, we're great and we do really good stuff and we've got lots of things, and trust us. If you haven't measured them, or if you haven't monitored them, you can't actually translate that to something tangible. So that's a really important thing. And that's what we often bring out when we work with clients and actually do their asset workshop. And we had one client recently who said, it's been on my to-do list for 3 years. And we went in and basically did it within a week, done and dusted, and then they're off and they're flying. But it's one of those things that can be hard to get around to and do by yourself.
Right. Ash has just popped in a question there. Just in terms of deep diving here a little bit, Sharon and Linda. Ash has asked, how do you go about valuing your assets? What would you say to that?
You can actually go out to a media buyer if you've got some significant assets. So if we use a partnership architecture, which there's 5 different pillars of activity, and so one of those might be sponsorship. So if you have got some really valuable assets, it might be worth you getting them valued by a media buyer. It's been a while since I've done one, but depending on the size of your assets, it's about $5,000 to have that done. I think generally though, with the engagement cycle and the way that we would look at assets, it's more about finding what your strengths are within those assets, and then being able to say to a prospective partner, look, I've got this particular audience that you also have, or that you may be interested in. So it's actually more about defining what your strengths are and what tangible benefits you can offer, as opposed to, this asset is worth 50,000, this asset is worth 5,000, because when you're thinking about a partnership, it's much more integrated than that, and there's many different levels of a partnership, and not just the marketing and communication side of it.
And so maybe your strongest asset doesn't relate to something that's commercial or can be externally valued. It might be a particular niche audience that you have, or a unique voice that you have. So that's an intangible. So not everything that can be measured can be costed, but it can be your biggest strength.
Right. Does that help, Asha? Maybe just pop a little message to us there if that actually gives you something to work with in that asset space. But again, you've mentioned that you can actually do some work with people around assets. I think that would be great if people are interested in. Great insight. Thanks, Asha. Thanks for your feedback there. If people are interested in doing some of that discovery work around assets, drop us a line, let us know, and we can certainly get you connected in with Sharon and Linda to do some of that work. I might move into the next question. I just want to acknowledge your question there, Roberto. I've got that there, and we'll bring that up shortly to answer that. Thank you very much. If other people are starting to think about things that you specifically want answered, we've got another 20 minutes to go. So please let us know. We're here for you. The next question is from Robbie in New South Wales. I'm just going to read out the question. It says, hi, Sharon and Linda. And I think Robbie's here with us today. Hi, Robbie. I have a schools education program on food source, which I'm hoping to take Australia-wide if I can enlist a flagship partner. My main concern at the moment relates to the initial stage of my search to find a project partner. I'm slowly working through a list of prospects and would love some help in the how to grow that list. Could you please share your wisdom on that?
That's another $1 for me, I think, for somebody asking about how you add to the prospect list. So Robbie, I think I want to refer to the engagement cycle there and just work through, have you done those foundation pieces? So when I think about your question, I think about, okay, what is it that you actually need from a business and a partner? So is it that you need funding, or is it that you need reach? Because I'm not sure which one it is that you need on there. And if it is funding, there are other revenue streams as well as business. So have you considered major donors? Have you considered philanthropy, trusts and foundations? I think the next part then of that engagement cycle is around your assets. Have you worked out what you've got to offer to a potential partner? Like, why would they jump on board as a flagship partner for this program? A little bit of insight would be, because you've got a really a great topic at the moment, healthy eating, and there's a lot of conversation about obesity in school children in Australia. So you've definitely got something that is very attractive there. The other thing that's making me think that you've got something that's attractive to a business partner is because you're working with schools and children and families, and that is something that a lot of organisations do want to tap into. But again, you do need to think about what assets you've got and what it is that you would offer to a potential flagship partner. Your unique value proposition, have you defined what is special about you? Are there other organisations out there who are doing similar to you? So what are you doing that's different to anyone that's similar? And the last part is your no-go areas as well. Do think about and do be clear about who you will and you won't partner with. I know that a lot of organisations that do want to talk to schools and children and families are companies like, ones that manufacture sugary drinks, ones that manufacture junk food. So be really clear about who you will and won't partner with. And I think if you can get those foundation pieces right, then you'll be able to, it was like, you've got a whole list of businesses. Once you know what you want, whether it is funding or reach, you can think about what business are going to be interested in that, and then what you have to offer, what's special about you, and think about what businesses have a vested interest in you succeeding. And if you can think about it from the business's point of view, you'll probably be able to add to that contact list in an effective way. So I hope that answers the question, that get the foundation pieces right first. So be able to think about what you want from the business, what you have to offer, what's special about you, and who you will and won't partner with before you start adding to that contact list.
And I guess in effect that actually helps you with your list, because the part that you said there about who has a vested interest in you succeeding, and when you look at that, I've got a schools education program on the value of food source, of where our food comes from, and us having, I guess, an understanding and a connection to food source and the value of that in today's age. Where is that vested interest? And I guess if you overlay those two areas, the list almost emerges in a way. Is that what you find?
I think it's something that's definitely will, once you find out who's interested in your success, I think there is, with the project that you've got as well, it is something that's really attractive. I know that Woolworths at the moment are doing those fresh food tours. And I think Woolworths spends a lot of money on their research. So they've obviously figured out that this is something that they find attractive to any of their stakeholders. So it is something that's attractive there. But I think work out once you found out who wants to see you successful, and also who wants to tap into your asset, so who wants the same audience that you're already talking to, then it will kind of refine your prospect list into some hotter prospects for you.
Great, fantastic. Robbie, I hope that that's helping, and probably some of the other questions that we're answering as well might be helping you with that work. It's tricky as well, isn't it, when you're in a DIY space, when you're doing this yourself, or you're a small organisation or a small business with a social purpose, to actually wrap your head around some of these, all these different elements that you need to take into consideration. So hopefully, Robbie, this session in total is helping. I'm just going to quickly mention another session that's coming up that you might be interested in having a look at as well. We have just organised a partnership with Pro Bono Australia, who some of you may be on their mailing list and received this in the last 24 hours. But because we've had a big focus, Sharon, Linda and myself have had a big focus on the small to medium-sized businesses in Australia, and they make up nearly 50% of the $18 billion that go into partnerships, community business partnerships in Australia every year. And that phenomena was kind of discovered last year through the Giving Australia research to be able to quantify that. So that's 80 to 90% of the business market are small to medium businesses. And we're going to be talking in a webinar in 2 weeks' time, the three of us actually, more about unpacking the SME market and what it means, and what is it like, what's the difference with creating a social partnership with a small to medium-sized business as opposed to a corporate business. And there are a number of differences. So that's just a little plug for something that's coming up in 2 weeks' time that you also might want to have a look at, and another way to learn from Sharon and Linda. So just coming back to some questions, we've got another question here that came in the last week from Melinda. I'll read this question out so everyone can hear it. Melinda from Step by Step Support says, we provide an alternative separation solution for families that is supportive, sensitive and encouraging. Our original go-to-market strategy was to align with legal firms. We are now pivoting on that and considering the benefit of an alliance or a partnership with one major brand to help connect more families into our services. Sharon and Linda, do you have any examples of this that you could share, or any tips that you could offer us, please?
Thanks very much, Melinda, for your question. You mentioned that you want to connect more families into your service. So I'm assuming that you need greater reach, or possibly some new channels to access those families. It sounds like you're in a kind of stage of like test and prove with your business model. So that's something I won't comment on, and I know that you're going to be working on in the background. I guess my first reaction would be a couple of things to consider. Who's already got the audience that you seek? So it may be that there are possibly organisations that are already involved with families that are in the process of separation. Sometimes that can be community or government funded organisations, and sometimes that's private providers. So they might be counselling services, mediation, something similar to that. And legal firms, as you mentioned, probably won't view you as a partner, more as a competitor. So I think, the first consideration is who's already got your audience, and is there a way of collaborating or partnering with them to share that access to the audience? And the second one sort of builds on a point that Sharon made earlier, as about who has a vested interest in your success. So issues of equity and access are very topical at the moment, especially for women affected by family breakdown. I'm thinking more around banks, superannuation providers. It's a very hot topic for them at the moment, especially as women are retiring with a lot less resources than men as a result of family breakdown. That's an opportunity to think about who else works in that area and wants you to be successful, or you can add to their success. And then the final thing is really what value can you actually offer to a partner? You've obviously had some arrangements previously with law firms. So it's really about crystallizing what can you offer to a partner as well. So before you actually go out and start approaching what looks like an obvious partner, think about what you're offering as well, and put yourself in their shoes and try to understand what's really important for that organization as well. So I hope that just gives you a few tips and things to think about, Melinda.
Great. And so, Linda, would that be doing some of that asset discovery work? Like if you're pivoting, if you have, as a business or a charity or a social enterprise, if you've had a strategy and you've tested it and you've worked out, that hypothesis is not right, so let's try something else. Is that asset piece of work would be critical then in terms of for a small business like this, trying to work out where might be the best possible match?
Yes, and I think the process itself also helps get you really clear on what you're actually after. So it sounds like a business that's continually evolving, which is fabulous.
Right.
But you need to be really clear on what's your story about the journey you're going on and what you actually need. So those first two pieces around, that nailing that strategy piece, but then critically about assets. So you go in with an offering that's a true partnership rather than talk about your own need and then let everyone else sort of, draw the inference about what they ought to provide to it. So the assets piece is a really great way of crystallizing that and making you a lot more confident about making that approach.
Okay, great. Excellent. Melinda, I'm not sure if you're here with us today. I'm just looking at the list there, but if you are, does that help? Please drop a comment there in the chat box for us. I'm just going to show you a couple of other ways that you can engage and connect in with Sharon and Linda before we go on to the next question. If you have a look in the X Factor Collective cafe, the cafe area is our online store and our growing online store, where we're basically going to list all the different ways that you can connect in with our specialist practitioners. So you can see there that Sharon and Linda are available for one-off coaching sessions where you can have a full hour with them and deep dive on different topics, which is great, and also some workshops there. One of the things that we're really big about at the X Factor Collective and what we'll be doing over the next couple of years is looking at ways that we can bring small groups together and cost share exercises. So if you've got an interest in a workshop but you can't necessarily allocate the budget to that, please let us know, because we are going to be doing a lot more collaborative strategy where people with shared needs can be in the same room together and get get the value of that without having to pay for the full price tag themselves. So jump on there and have a look. Let us know what you need, and we'll see how we can help you get there faster and in the most affordable way. So the next question that we have here is they've preferred to stay anonymous in sending us this question, and it relates to risk in collaborations. And this question relates to disability service providers and the growing competitive quasi-market that's being established by the NDIS. So the question here, Sharon and Linda, is how do you approach and manage partnership conversations with potentially hostile stakeholders, particularly in sectors or spaces, for example, quasi-markets, where partnerships are crucial to everyone's success, including the clients? Do you have any recommendations for constructing a persuasive argument to engage competitors in collaborative efforts, for example, in the area of care coordination? What are your thoughts on that, Sharon and Linda?
That's really topical at the moment, and we've talked to a lot of NDIS organisations that are now being forced to be more market-facing, i.e. competing for clients, whereas previously they had block funding from government and their clients were allocated to them. So it's driving a different type of behaviour and skills that aren't natural in an organisation that's been doing things a certain way for probably the last 50 years. So undoubtedly it's causing a fair bit of unease within the sector. And there's for sure a place for both charitable and for-profit organisations working in this space. There's plenty of need, there's plenty of work to be done. I think the biggest incentive to break down that natural sense of competition is the opportunity to create large-scale impact through collaboration. So let's take the discussion right back to basics of what issue you're trying to solve, and that is meeting the needs of people with a variety of disabilities. And working together can actually create a much bigger and much more significant impact than all of those small organisations working alone. But the changes in the system do require a new way of thinking. And I think with a new way of thinking, the best way to start is to create a shared vision for change with the organisations in that same space. And that goes back to, for purpose, what are we actually here for? And undoubtedly what we've seen is that collaborations are more successful in achieving bigger block funding, whether it's from government or from philanthropists or private trusts and foundations, than small organisations that cannot demonstrate sufficiently why they're different or why they're doing something significant. So it really goes to the heart of collective impact rather than a traditional corporate charity fundraising model. But the thing that is common to it is the what's in it for me. So really the challenge for this questioner is to articulate to her fellow organisations very clearly the what's in it for me, and the significant uplift in impact and reach and the ability to win bigger chunks of funding should be a great place to start.
Fantastic. Great. Fantastic. On that thread, I've got two questions here from Roberto. Roberto, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to actually ask your second question first because it does touch on the topic of collaboration. Roberto asks, Sharon and Linda, what are your thoughts on charities partnering to pitch together? Is there strength in numbers, or is it just in the too hard basket for both the partner and the charities? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's similar around a collective impact model as well. And it's about, so why would you partner? What's in it for each of the partners to partner together? Do you both bring special skills or different reaches or different networks? Like, so what's the purpose of partnering in the first place? And then what does each party get out of a partnership? So again, it's that, what's in it for me? So why would the partner that you're, the other charity that you're asking to partner, what do they get out of partnering with you? And if you can articulate both of those things, then I think you've got the basis of a partnership there.
And there's a great example with an international aid charity we worked with once. And this charity was in competition with two others for a particular, very valuable partnership. And so it got really smart and it approached the smaller other charity that it was wanted competing against and said, hey, let's work together. And they had a really niche ability to mobilize volunteers, like a desktop volunteering model that this large charity didn't have because all of their programs were overseas. So they went back to the corporate partner and said, hey, look, you don't have to choose between a beauty contest between three of them. We're working together and we can deliver this together. And here's the portion that each organisation can deliver and why that value proposition is much stronger together. And they won it. They won it. So rather than go head to head with two others, they actually collaborated and created a better solution as a result.
That's a great example. And I guess even for Robbie in New South Wales with the Food Source program, Melinda with the step-by-step program, I guess it's in this partnership realm of being able to identify, well, who would I be? Where is the stronger together element? Who else could I partner with to make a thicker proposition to a big partner? Yeah, that's a very good, thanks Roberto for that question, because I think that actually might help some other people in terms of thinking about their strategy and thinking about their approach. For sure. We've got two more questions before we go. But as you can imagine, because we're doing this for free, there's nothing like just getting in a couple of quick ad spots along the way. And what I want to let you know is, well, it's not really an ad spot, it's just more free stuff. It's the next 3 weeks of who we have here on Wednesday mornings. There's next week is with Jodie Wilmar, who's worked with hundreds of boards and committees. Absolutely brilliant woman, a member of our collective. Please let people know about these sessions, even if they're not directly relevant for you. We've also got one of the best data scientists in the country, Adam, there, and John Bishop, who is the co-founder of Pet Rescue, some of you may know, has built the most trafficked charity website in Australia. They have hundreds of thousands of people on their website. And so from a technology point of view, John is fantastic to speak to, whether it's for an organisation or for your business, on everything tech. So just letting you know who we've got coming up. Please do share those with your networks. They're brilliant people to learn from and to engage with. So back into the last two questions, if that's okay, Sharon and Linda. We've got one that's come in from Jennifer. Thanks, Jennifer. Jennifer's question is, how do you promote a topic that is often considered taboo or unpalatable? Great question. Jennifer says that they are Australia's oldest HIV charity. Sharon and Linda, what are your thoughts on that?
Do you want me to take this one?
Sure.
I think there's two parts to that question. I think, well, one, I think HIV is probably changing now. We had an interesting meeting with an organisation last week who were responsible for releasing medication to prevent HIV infection, and I do think that because of equality now, marriage equality as well, I think that the subject isn't as taboo as it used to be. I think I would probably think about who has a vested interest in you succeeding. So think about what businesses will be interested in, or who have your target market, and would they be prepared to get that message out there? So think about the target market who is impacted by HIV, and what businesses are already promoting support with that target market, and I think then you've got more of a strong proposition.
And can I add to that? I often get this question of like, my charity isn't sexy, my cause isn't interesting. And let me give an example of how one charity turned it around. There's a charity in the UK called the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Now, it's associated with a lot of very elderly gentlemen and binoculars sort of wandering out onto the heaths, watching birds instantly. Mm-hmm. It's not remotely sexy, and it's not remotely glamorous at all. But what they did was actually go back to the fundamentals of what are we about? Is it just a bunch of aging bird twitchers? No, we're actually about leaving a legacy of the experience of nature and the environment for our children. Once they'd actually uncovered what was the core of what they were really doing, it changed their messaging. And then they started to get the voice of children about what was important to children. And the one that stood out for me was the letter that started with a small 8-year-old's quote, which was, "I don't want to live in a world that has no sparrows." And so therefore they turned around what was basically a flat cap, very unglamorous charity into something that suddenly became meaningful for a whole bunch of other people. So I think, again, it's digging deep about what are you really trying to achieve. So not what are you doing in terms of providing HIV drugs or education. What is the life that you're actually giving to people who are the beneficiaries? So, Sharon's an old romantic. She thinks there's a partner for everyone. And I think I tend to agree with her. So it's just about getting to the heart of what you do and thinking about how to reframe that.
Fantastic. Jennifer, I hope that helps there. Maybe if you want to just pop a little response to us there in the chat box, or anything further you'd like to clarify. We are at 10:45. We do run for 45 minutes every Wednesday morning. But I do have Roberto's question, and he did get this in first, so I'm going to come back to that one if that's okay. Thank you, says Jennifer. Thanks, Jennifer, for asking that question. I think that was a really valuable answer for all of us to hear. That's great. So Roberto's question refers to a recent article that we wrote for Fundraising and Philanthropy magazine. So if you haven't seen those, we are turning those into a white paper. It's a 3-part series on partnering with small to medium organisations. So if you're interested in that, let us know and we can send you the white paper as well. Roberto's question is about, in the last article, it mentioned regular giving programs. And Roberto says, do you think there is a role to play in a specialist regular giving program designed just for small business as an entree to building something bigger? He clarifies that and expands, saying, for example, something for a small business like an accounting firm that really just serves their local community versus a larger small business that might operate nationally or have a bigger brand. Sharon and Linda, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think I might answer that one, Sharon. Julia, we've seen a lot of examples of people trying to use regular giving programs and methodology with SMEs. And the problem with that is it just tends to be a slightly bigger package or a slightly bigger ask. And what you've actually just created is a commodity. Whereas partnerships, especially with SMEs, are really all about relationship. So you're talking apples and oranges here. So it may be a bigger ask and it might be a slightly nicer package and the collateral is a bit more glossy, but it's still a commodity.
Right.
And what you're actually trying to do is create a relationship based on a mutual understanding of each other's drivers and organizational needs. So whilst I understand where he's coming from in terms of trying to get reach, I don't think that's the way to do it, because that's not how you build relationships. So I think it's undoubtedly a systematic way of looking at where you've got relationships, where you've got connections. It's really about understanding a combination of their business drivers and their personal drivers. And you don't do that with a standard package. So that's why I think great idea, and I know where you're coming from, but I don't think that's appropriate for this market.
Great. Roberto, does that help answer that question? Maybe you could just give us a little note there in the chat box. If it's okay, Sharon and Linda, we still do have some questions. We are over time. Is that okay if we continue? We've got 2 more questions to go.
Sure, great.
Everyone for these wonderful questions. And like I said at the start, that we are recording all of this. We will be chopping them up into nice little bite-sized videos that you can come back and watch on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks as well. So this question comes from Asha. Thanks, Asha. The question is, Sharon and Linda, do you think it is okay to approach a corporate partner for event sponsorship, or should you safeguard your corporate partners from any other approaches? Yeah, does that make sense? The question? Yeah.
Yeah, I understand this correctly, that so you've already got a corporate partner who's on board as a corporate partner of your organization, and then you're approaching them to be a sponsor as well. Am I understanding that the right way around?
Asha, if you just want to pop in the chat box there. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I know a lot of organizations do, especially those who do the gala balls. And I think it really does come back to what is the aim of your partnership, and what are you trying to achieve together, rather than are you just seeing your partnership as or your partner as somebody who has a lot of money. And so, worked in organizations where you are asked multiple times to keep contacting partners and ask them for multiple things, which aren't part of a partnership plan and aren't part of where your strategy as an organization is going for. For you to put together a proposal and go and ask them to sponsor a gala dinner is probably going to take you as long as what it could do to go and find a new partner as well. So my preference is probably not on that, because I think it's just I would say that you're actually just going out there and looking for money, as opposed to what you're trying to achieve in a partnership. And is your partner the best way to do that? Want to add anything to that?
It is a conundrum, isn't it? If you've got a good relationship with an organization, then how do you extend it a little bit further? You've really got to know the partnership really well and see whether that's actually a fit. Otherwise, you're kind of like just constantly out with a begging bowl. It's like, yes, we have a partnership based on X, but can I have this, and can I borrow your car, and can you lend me money? And then the relationship starts to break down at that point. You do run the risk. So I would run it back and say there may be an opportunity for them to step into event sponsorships, but go back to the principles of why they're partnering with you in the first place and check to see if it fits. Absolutely give them first refusal if you think they're a warm prospect, rather than bring in a new one. But go back to what is the anchor point for the partnership, and then decide whether it fits. And then you'll have your answer about whether you should go on and ask them about the event sponsorship.
Yeah, like, is the event full of your partner's target audience? Then it's a good proposition. If it's not, and you're just asking for money, then I'd probably consider it a little bit differently.
So Asha's just clarified there, using the principle, she believes that the event is a suitable asset that would benefit the partner. So I guess that's what you've just said there, Sharon, as well, is if there is an obvious benefit, then you would discuss that with the partner.
Yeah.
Great. Does that help, Asha? Thank you very much for that. Fantastic. Pleased to help. The final question here does pick up on that as well. It's an earlier question, which is about what businesses are looking for in a charity partner. So the question is, Sharon and Linda, can you please explain what are businesses looking for from a charity partner, based on some of your recent work with corporates and businesses?
So, yeah, we've worked with a lot of businesses recently, and what we've seen consistently is that they're looking to partner with fewer organizations but go a lot deeper. They're looking for something that's more meaningful. So, the old trend of I've got $1 million and I'll give it out in $5,000 lots and call those partnerships is really shifting. People are looking for a much more meaningful relationship. And there's a range of things depending on the organization. So sometimes it's about emotional and engaging content that they can use for their social media or their communication channels. And I always think of the organization we worked with that sold Dettol, and their staff did nothing but sell units of Dettol or Dettol products all day. And what they really wanted was something really emotional and engaging and inspiring to talk to their customers about, other than just Dettol, which is understandable. Other things, it could be staff engagement and the opportunity to use their core skills for something meaningful. So not just a turn up and do a day's volunteering, but actually use their core skills in the same way that, a great example is Boston Consulting Group, who are a big strategy consulting firm, loaned their people and their skills to the Cape York Land Council to help build governance for the organisation. Now, that's really valuable skills they would never have been able to afford themselves, but they did that on a long-term basis. So their staff had like an 18-month rotation, helping to immerse themselves in that organisation. So that's a really deep relationship. There's a range of things. It might be opportunity to reach new audiences, or reach new audiences together, or reach a niche or hard to find one. But I can tell you what it's not. What we're not hearing is, I just can't wait for the opportunity to put my logo on your website or your annual report. So that's absolutely not on the list of what business wants at the moment. It doesn't even make the top 100. It's kind of an incidental of course, as a partnership, we'll put it there, but that is not the driver. So if you're thinking about that's the start point, then get that out of your head right now. So what people are looking for is something a lot more meaningful, more integrated, and opportunities to use different things, different skills, different products, different channels in that relationship.
Fantastic. That's great. Really, really good advice there, especially that one around entering into new markets together. That's just something, to be able to have a conversation at that level with somebody. And even some of the questions that we've had here today from Robbie and Melinda, just to be able to think about that. Is there a way that in these conversations you could be helping that partner enter into a new market in that shared value space, the social and the commercial elements of those? So that's really good advice. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, it's been a fantastic hour. I think we've got through about 12 questions in the last hour, which is a world record because we're only 2 weeks in. And so thank you everyone for coming along today. Please do share some feedback. You'll receive an email from us, and thank you, Roberto, for your kind words there. You'll receive an email from us, and please just write back and tell us what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what else you would like to see that we can create for you. Please spread the word. It is 18-week free program, 20 hours just like this between now and Christmas, with some of my favourite people in the country, some incredibly talented people that you can come and hang out with. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, Sharon and Linda, for sharing your morning here with us today. Very, very much appreciated. And thank you for your beautiful comments there from everyone. Great Q&A. Really enjoyed the insights. Thank you from Danielle. Thank you, Asha. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone, for coming in. Have a beautiful rest of your day, whatever you get up to. Keep warm if you're here in Melbourne with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.